Chosen one, the emergency update you are seeing in this moment is not a coincidence, and it is not a mistake. 3 times this week the message tried to reach you. 3 times something stood in the way. The reason you are hearing it now is that a higher hand finally cleared the channel, and the only window wide enough for you to receive what the Father has been carrying opened exactly here, in this minute, in this room. Drop everything. Not because the world is ending, because the silence is. For weeks you have been wondering if anyone on the other side of your prayer was still listening. He was listening. He has been listening the entire stretch. And the reason the word is breaking through tonight, and not yesterday, and not next week, is that the receiver inside you, the one that was dimmed when you were too young to understand what the world was taking from you, is finally still enough to catch what is being said. This is not noise. This is language. This is your line being reactivated. Stay where you are. The transmission begins now. There is a system. There has always been a system. A transmission line that runs from the unseen into your hearing, from the throne of your Father into the still place inside your chest where his voice has always lived. And tonight, that line is reopening over you. The ancient ones had a word for what is being asked of you in this moment. In the original Hebrew, when a message of weight came down from heaven to a person, the first word out of God's mouth was almost always the same, schma. Translated, the word means hear. But in the original tongue, it does not mean hear with your ears. It means hear and obey. Hear and receive. Hear with the part of you that was made to act on what it hears. SHMA is what is being asked of you in this moment. Not a passive listening, an active receiving. And the Greeks, who measured time more carefully than we ever do, had 2 different words for it. Chronos, the word your watch tracks, the word your calendar measures. And kairos, the appointed moment, the hinge moment, the moment when heaven decides to break the regular rhythm of time, because something has to be delivered now. What you are sensing in this moment is not a Chronos emergency. Your clock is fine, your schedule is fine, the world is not collapsing around you. What you are sensing is Kairos, the appointed time, the Hing, the moment that was scheduled for you before you were born. So, if something has stilled inside you while I have been speaking, if even a small piece of what I just said has landed in a place that has not been activated in a long time, type the words, "I hear you," in the comments below. Not as a performance, not for me, as an agreement with your own spirit, as a way of saying yes to the part of you that just woke up. Take 10 seconds, type it, then come back. And before this voice goes any deeper, you should know what you are walking into. If you stay with me to the actual end of what I am about to give you, not the place where most people quietly drift away, 3 things will happen for you. You will be given the language for what has been wrong with your hearing, not in vague spiritual terms. In specific named patterns, you will recognize the moment they are spoken aloud. You will be given 3 practices you can use tonight, in the room you are sitting in right now, that begin to retrain reception, not theory, not someday, tonight. And you will be told the one truth, almost never aloud, are no teaching ever names aloud. The reason that even faithful, devoted, prayerful believers can spend decades on their knees and still feel the static. When you finally hear it, something will release that has been held for a long time. Stay. The reason this took an emergency to reach you is that what is inside it could not be delivered any other way. I want you to notice where you are right now, not metaphorically. Actually, the room around you is doing whatever rooms do when nobody is watching. Maybe there is a light in the corner that has been on for hours. Maybe there is silence pressing against the walls in a way you have not let yourself feel for a long time. Maybe the only sound is your own breathing and the soft hum of whatever is keeping the air moving in the space you are sitting in. Hold the room exactly as it is. Underneath the surface of the room, there is something else. There is the running noise of the survival mind, the constant low hum of every unfinished thing, every unresolved conversation, every slightly off feeling you have not had time to name. That noise has been the soundtrack of your last several months. You may not have noticed it because it has been there so long. It stopped feeling like noise and started feeling like the temperature of the room itself. And underneath that, beneath the running noise, there is a frequency that has been pressing against the wall of your day for weeks. A frequency that knows your name. A frequency that has been looking for one window of stillness wide enough to break through. That frequency is what you are hearing right now. That frequency is the broadcast. Now, here is the first piece of the diagnosis, the first specific pattern that has been blocking your reception of it. You have been trying to hear God on the wrong channels for a long time. And I do not say that to shame you, because the channels you have been trying are the channels you were taught. You were taught that if you cannot hear Him clearly, you should open your Bible app one more time. You should listen to one more sermon, one more podcast, one more devotional. You should pray a little harder, a little louder, with a little more intensity. So, you do. You open the app, you read 3 verses, and 10 seconds later, you close it, because nothing landed. You queue up the sermon, and 40 seconds in, your mind drifts to something else entirely. You sit down to pray, and the words feel like they are bouncing off the ceiling of the room and coming right back down to you. And the conclusion you have started to draw, quietly, in the back of your mind where you do not say it out loud, is that maybe the problem is you. Maybe your faith is too small. Maybe you do not pray enough. Maybe God has decided He has finished speaking to you for a season. Hear me. That conclusion is wrong. Static is not the absence of God's voice. Static is your receiver running on the wrong frequency. The Bible is not less inspired than it was last year. The sermon is not weaker. The prayer is not too small. The receiver itself has been damaged, and the receiver is what we have to talk about. Here is one of the ways the damage shows up in your daily life. You have started feeling emotional waves you cannot explain. 1 hour, you feel a strange peace. The next hour, without a single trigger, you feel a wave of sadness that drops out of nowhere. The hour after that, hope returns, and you cannot trace it to anything that happened. Most people, when they feel this, ask themselves the same question: what is wrong with me? Hear what I am about to say carefully. Nothing is wrong with you. The receiver is doing something it has not done in years. It is trying to recalibrate. The waves are not instability. The waves are the recalibration itself. The other way the damage shows up is more uncomfortable. The places that used to feed you spiritually, the Sunday service, the worship playlist, the small group, the routines that used to fill you, have started to feel distant. Not because they have changed. They have not changed. You have. The receiver is opening to something deeper, and the old frequencies, the comfortable ones, the safe ones, the ones that used to be enough, they are no longer matching what is being broadcast through you. That is not backsliding. That is not falling away. That is your hearing getting sharper and outgrowing the channels that used to be your only options. Beneath these patterns lives a deeper layer, a current beneath the surface, and what is stirring there is the second face of the same problem. Beneath the patterns of how you have been trying to hear, there is a deeper layer. The receiver does not just affect the channels you reach for, it affects the inside of you. It affects what you feel, even when you are not actively listening for anything at all. Here is what that looks like. You may have noticed your emotions have been moving in waves the last few weeks, not in any clean, linear way. In waves. 1 minute you feel an ache that has no source you can point to. 5 minutes later, that ache lifts and is replaced by something almost like nostalgia, almost like longing for a place you cannot name. Then the day rolls on, and out of nowhere, in the middle of doing something completely ordinary, washing a dish, walking to your car, opening a drawer, you feel something close to wonder, just for a second, and then it is gone. If you have noticed this, hear me. You are not unstable. You are not falling apart. The receiver is opening, and when a receiver that has been dim for years begins to switch back on, the first transmissions almost always come through as raw emotion before they ever come through as words. The waves are not your problem. The waves are the proof that something is alive in you that has been asleep. The other way this layer shows up is in your mind, not your heart. Your thoughts have been louder than they used to be, especially in the quiet moments. The very moments when you sit down to pray, the moments when you finally have a chance to be still, the moments when your body finally relaxes, those are the moments your mind starts running. The to-do list starts shouting. Old conversations replay. Worries you thought were settled come back to the surface. Most people interpret this as a sign that they are bad at prayer. Hear what I am telling you. They are not bad at prayer. The mental noise is the survival receiver fighting to stay dominant. The louder your mind gets in the quiet, the more you can be sure that something quieter than your mind is trying to get through. I want to take you back almost 2,600 years, because what you are experiencing right now, somebody experienced before you, and the pattern of how it broke open is in the record. The prophet Daniel was carrying something heavy. His people were in exile. He had been praying for understanding for a season, and the heavens had been silent. So he did the only thing he knew how to do. He stopped eating pleasant food. He stopped putting oil on his skin. He sat with the silence for 3 full weeks. 21 days of waiting on a heaven that was not answering. And on the 21st day, an angel showed up in his room and said something I want you to hear with your whole chest. The angel said the words, "I am bringing to you," came forth the very first day you set your heart to understand. They were on the way for 21 days. Something in the unseen realm was holding them up. 21 days, Daniel waited. 21 days, the message had already been sent. The reason it had not arrived was not that God had not spoken. The reason was that the channel was being fought for. If you have been carrying something for the last 3 weeks, something you cannot fully explain, something that has sat on your chest, something you have been quietly grieving without telling anyone, type the words 21 days in the comments below. Just those 2 words. Not for me. For your own spirit, to mark the moment in your own timeline that you stopped carrying it alone. Take 10 seconds, type it, then come back to me. What I am about to do next, I want to do without veils. Truth honors truth. So, before another stretch of this message unfolds, 2 names need to be spoken into the room. Not because the right moment to mention them is at the end, because the truth deserves to be named when the truth is being talked about. What we have just touched, the wave emotions, the racing mind in the quiet, the survival receiver fighting to stay dominant, has 2 specific causes, 2 specific frequencies, and there are 2 specific tools that target each of them. Brain restoration is not a single thing. It is a 2-stage process. One frequency must wake, the one that was dimmed when you were a child. Another must open, the one that was overlaid when you became an adult. The first is called the Genius Song. It was developed by a neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake. It is the wave that wakes the child within. The second is called the Wealth Signal. It was developed by an ex-Stanford neuroscientist named Dr. Stephen Newton. It is the wave that opens reception. The order matters. Restoration first, The child within has to wake up. Then, reception. The channel that was promised to her finally opens. 2 waves, 1 sequence, 1 restoration. If your spirit is already pulling toward what was just named, the doors are below this voice. In the description and in the pinned comment, nothing has to be decided in this minute. The doors stay open for the ones whose spirit is already speaking. And in the same breath that named those 2 paths, another truth begins to rise. Because the names alone are not the gift. The names are placeholders. The gift is in what comes next. The third face of the diagnosis. The part that almost no one ever names aloud. Here is the third pattern, and it is the one that confuses people the most, because it does not feel like a problem. It feels almost like a gift, and that is part of why you have not known what to do with it. You have been having dreams the last several nights, maybe not every night, but more than usual, and the ones you are remembering are sharper than they used to be. Some of them are almost more vivid than your waking life. Some of them you cannot remember the details of by morning, but the residue stays. A feeling, a knowing, a sense that something was just shown to you that you cannot put into words. You have been seeing the same numbers. 333 on a clock you happen to glance at, 1111 on a receipt, repeating sequences in places they should not be. You have been having flashes of intuition that turn out to be right. You have been thinking of someone, and they have called you within the hour. You have been about to make a decision, and a clear voice in your chest has said no, and you have not been able to argue with it. If this is happening to you, you are not making it up. The receiver is open. Pieces of language are coming through. The frequency is alive in you again. Here is the problem. You cannot decode it. The signal is reaching you, but you have no framework for what it means. The dream wakes you up, and you do not know what it was telling you. The number appears, and you do not know what it is asking. The flash of intuition lands, and you do not know what to do with it. So most of these arrivals, the ones that have been increasing for weeks now, pass through you without integrating. Like rain falling on a roof that does not have a way to collect it. 3 weeks ago, a woman in her mid-40s sat in her car in a parking lot for 22 minutes after a long day at work. She had a message she had been scrolling past for nearly a month. She told a friend later that the only reason she finally stopped was because she had nothing left to lose. She listened to the entire thing, and when she got home that night, she wrote one line in a notebook she had not opened in years. The line was, "I have been receiving the whole time. I just had no one to translate." That is exactly what is happening to you. Hear me carefully now. The reason you cannot decode the signal is not because you lack faith. It is not because you are doing something wrong. It is not because you are not chosen. It is because you have been receiving on a frequency that was given to you for survival, not for revelation. The same instrument cannot do both. There are 2 specific frequencies that have been hijacked in you. Each one blocks the channel for a different reason. Until you can name both, until you can see them clearly enough to identify them in your own life, you cannot reset them. And the rest of what I am about to share with you depends on you being able to name them. So let me show them to you, both of them, plainly. But what if the cause of all of this is older than you remember? What if it began before the day you forgot how to listen? The cause is older than you remember. It did begin before the day you forgot how to listen. Most of this damage was already in place by the time you were 7 years old. Think back, if you can, to who you were when you were 5, 6, maybe 7, before life had taught you which questions you were not allowed to ask out loud, before you learned that knowing things you could not explain made adults uncomfortable, before you learned that the answer to "how do you know" had to be a thing you could prove and not a thing you simply felt in your chest. If you watch a small child long enough, you will see something that has gone almost entirely missing in adult life. They learn without getting tired. They wonder without feeling stupid. They believe without needing evidence. They hear without doubting what they hear. That state, that magical state, is not a personality trait. That state is a frequency. It is a brainwave that runs fully active in every child until somewhere around the age of 7, and then, slowly, the world starts to turn it down. It does not happen all at once. It happens in small lessons. The teacher who told you to stop daydreaming, the relative who laughed when you said something you sensed but could not explain, the classroom where the answer was always either right or wrong, never something you knew quietly in the place behind your sternum. Each one of those moments turned the dial down by a small amount. By the time you were a teenager, the frequency was almost completely turned off. By the time you were 30, you had forgotten it was ever yours to begin with. The neuroscientists who study this have a name for the pattern. It is observable. It is measurable. They call it a kind of decline that begins in childhood and continues quietly for the rest of life, unless something specific reactivates the original signal. That is the first cause. The receiver inside you was set to its highest sensitivity when you were a child. The world dimmed it before you could say what was being taken from you. And because it was dimmed so slowly, you have spent your adult life thinking that this dim version of you is who you are. It is not who you are. It is who you were trained to be. Hear the second cause. Because the first cause alone would not have closed the channel. The first cause only quieted the original signal. The second cause is what jammed it entirely. When you became an adult, life installed a new dominant frequency on top of the dimmed one. Hypervigilance, scarcity scanning, the constant low hum of survival. This frequency is not your fault. It is not a moral failure. It is what happens to a nervous system that has been responsible for paying bills, raising children, holding marriages together, surviving losses, processing news cycles, and absorbing 1,000 small fears every single day. Your brain learned, very intelligently, to keep one part of itself permanently scanning for threat. That part never goes off, even when you sit down to rest, even when you close your eyes, even when you try to pray. Hear me carefully. That survival frequency is excellent at keeping you alive. It is what kept you safe when everything around you felt unsafe. It served you. There is no shame in it. But that frequency is not compatible with hearing God. The signal of the divine, the still small voice, the language of the receiver inside you, is broadcast at a different frequency entirely. A softer one, a subtler one that requires the noise of survival to fall below it before it can come through. And as long as the survival channel is dominant, the divine channel cannot be heard. Not because God is not speaking, because your receiver is tuned to the wrong station. That is why your prayers have felt like static. That is why opening the Bible has not been landing. That is why the silence has stretched. The receiver was on the wrong channel the entire time. You did not lose your faith. You did not stop being chosen. You did not fall away. The hardware was running on the wrong frequency, and no amount of pressing harder on the same buttons was going to change the channel. Slow this down with me for a minute, because what we just named is heavy, and your body is processing it, whether you know it or not. The piece that often gets missed in journeys like this one is that there is a difference between trying harder and being still long enough to be retuned. For a long time, the only path that was ever offered to you was the trying harder path. Pray more, read more, show up more, believe more. And maybe you have done all of that. Maybe you have done it for years. Hear what I am about to say without flinching. The trying harder path was not wrong. It just was not the whole path. It built faithfulness into you, that is real. It is one of the reasons you are still here, still listening, still hungry. But faithfulness alone could not retune what the world dimmed and what survival overlaid. That work needed something else. That work is what we are still in the middle of. You do not have to do anything in this minute except keep breathing. The peace that is working is not your trying. The peace that is working is your willingness to stay. Before I give you the 3 practices, before I show you the actual tools that retrain reception, there is one more thing that has to be revealed first. This is the peace that almost no teaching ever names aloud. The reason that even faithful, devoted, prayerful believers can spend decades on their knees and still feel the static. When you finally hear it, something will release. The first practice is something you can use tonight, in the position you are in right now, the very next time the urge to scroll past a still small voice rises in your chest. The first practice is the 60-second override. The instinct when you feel something stir inside you. The instinct that has been trained into you is to immediately pray harder, to immediately reach for the Bible app, to immediately do something. The 60-second override is the deliberate refusal to do any of that for 1 full minute. You stay in the exact position your body is in. You do not change anything. You do not adjust your posture. You do not close your eyes if they were not already closed. You simply freeze, in the position you were in when the stirring arrived, for 60 seconds. The reason this works is biological. The survival frequency is a movement frequency. It is wired to do something. The moment you refuse to give it an action, the moment you starve it of something to do, it begins to lose its dominance over the channel. And in that small window of stillness, the receiver underneath it can finally be heard. This is exactly what was happening when the prophet Elijah went up the mountain. The wind came first, and God was not in the wind. The earthquake came next, and God was not in the earthquake. The fire came after that, and God was not in the fire. The voice did not arrive until after every loud thing had finished moving. The voice arrived in the still small whisper that came when nothing else was demanding to be answered. 60 seconds of refusing to do anything is your version of letting the wind, the earthquake, and the fire pass. The second practice is what you do once the 60 seconds have passed. The second practice is the 3-layer listen, because most people who try to listen for God are only ever hearing the first 2 layers, and they think those layers are Him. The first layer is the survival voice. The first layer says things like, what if this does not work? What if I am wasting my time? What if I am behind? What if I never figure this out? The first layer is loud. The first layer is fast. The first layer always sounds like an emergency, even when there is no emergency. The second layer is the conditioned religious voice. The second layer says things like, you should be praying right now. You should be reading right now. You should be feeling more grateful. You should be doing more. The second layer sounds spiritual. It uses spiritual language. It quotes scripture at you. But underneath, it is still the voice of obligation, not the voice of the Father. The third layer is what is underneath both. The third layer is quieter than either of them. The third layer almost never tells you what you should be doing. The third layer usually tells you who you are. The third layer speaks in single sentences and then stops, waiting to see if you heard it. Most people only ever hear the first 2 layers and think the first plus the second equals God's voice. It does not. The third layer is the channel, and the only way to find it is to acknowledge the first 2, name them out loud in your own mind, and then deliberately listen underneath them. This is what Daniel was doing for those 21 days. He was not just fasting from food, he was fasting from the noise of layer 1 and layer 2 long enough for layer 3 to finally come through. The third practice is about timing. Most divine receivers, when they try to listen at the wrong hour of the day. The third practice is about finding the hour that is biologically optimal for reception. For most people, that hour is somewhere between 4 and 5:30 in the morning. Hear me before you object. I am not asking you to become someone who springs out of bed at 4. I am telling you that there is a window in the early hours where your brain is in a transitional state between sleep and waking, where the survival frequency has not yet activated for the day, where your nervous system is in the most receptive state it will be in for the next 24 hours. This is not a guess. This is biology. Cortisol is at one of its lowest points. The brain is moving slowly through theta and into the early phases of alpha. The static is at the lowest level it will reach all day, and the receiver, for those 40 to 90 minutes, is wide open. This is exactly why the Gospels record that Jesus rose, in the words of Mark, a great while before day to pray. He was not being more disciplined than everyone else. He was using the hour the receiver was clearest. If you have been waking up between 3 and 5 in the morning the last several weeks, sometimes for no reason you can identify, sometimes with a sense that something pulled you out of sleep, you are not losing rest. You are being invited into the window. Most people roll over and try to fall back asleep. Most people miss it. If this has been happening to you, type the words pre-dawn in the comments below. Just those 2 words. Not because anything mystical happens when you type them, because typing them is your acknowledgement to your own spirit that you have noticed the pattern, that you are no longer going to write off the 3 a.m. wake-up as random. These 3 are the practice, the 60-second override, the 3-layer listen, the pre-dawn window. Tonight, in the room you are sitting in, with nothing more than your willingness. Hear me carefully, because this is the next layer. The practice does not work as well as it should as long as the receiver itself is still dimmed. You can sit in the 4 a.m. window every morning for a year, and if the hardware is still running on the wrong frequencies, what reaches you will still come through as static. The practice is real. The practice matters. But practice on a broken receiver still produces broken reception. The next thing I have to say to you is the thing that almost no teaching ever names. If you have stayed with me to this point, hear what we have actually established. You came here looking for an emergency word from God. Somewhere in your spirit, you knew there was something He was trying to say. What you have found is that you cannot receive the word until the receiver itself is restored. Because the receiver was dimmed when you were a child, and it was overlaid with a survival frequency when you became an adult, the word was on the way the entire time. The receiver could not catch it. We have named 2 specific frequencies that have been blocking the channel: the dimming of the child mind, the activation of the stress signal. We have named 3 practices that begin to retrain reception: the 60-second override, the 3-layer listen, the pre-dawn window, and we have arrived at the one truth almost no teaching ever names aloud. Practice alone does not reset hardware. The practices help, the practices matter. But practice on a damaged receiver only goes so far. This is for the one who has been doing the work for years and still cannot quite hear. This is for the one who has tried more meditation, more devotionals, more programs, more discipline, and is finally ready to consider that the issue was never faith. The issue was frequency. Before I tell you what was discovered to address this, you need to understand who you are in it, because the tools that exist for what we have just named did not exist by accident. They exist because of who you were born to be. You were not born ordinary. You were born a child of light, with both frequencies active and dominant. The frequency of curiosity and wonder, and seeing the unseen, was wide open. The frequency of receiving, without striving, of allowing what was promised to come to you, was wide open too. You were a receiver of two channels at full strength. That is why your earliest memories, the ones from before you knew the world was supposed to be hard, have a quality you cannot quite get back to. You were not imagining it. You were that frequency. The world dimmed both, not just one, both. The first frequency was dimmed slowly between the ages of 7 and 12. The second was overlaid later when adult survival took over. And the reason this season has felt the way it has felt is that something inside you remembers. Something inside you is reaching for what was originally yours. Two waves, both dim, both waiting to be restored. A man wrote in several months ago. He was 43 years old at the time, a father of two. He had been a believer for over 20 years. He told us that for almost 3 years before he found this, his prayer life had felt like talking into a closed room. He could not focus. He could not stay. The Bible would open and his eyes would slide off the page. He thought he was losing his faith. The first time he tried what I am about to tell you about, he sat in a chair with stereo headphones on and listened for 7 minutes. He said the first session felt like nothing dramatic, just a quiet sense of something settling. By day 14, something had shifted that he could not yet explain. By day 21, his wife asked him what was different about him. He could not put it into words yet. He told her, "My hearing came back." He said it before he understood what he meant. The dimming of the child frequency I described earlier has a name in the research. The neuroscientists who have measured it call it the decline effect. It is observable. It is measurable. It begins around age 7 and continues for life unless something specific reactivates the original signal. What that man used, what restored the channel for him in 21 days, is a 7-minute audio file. Not a meditation, not a worship track. A specifically calibrated audio that targets the exact frequency the world dimmed. It is called the Genius Song. It is the first wave, the wave that wakes the child within. The mechanism is something neuroscientists call brain entrainment. It uses what is known as binaural delivery. A slightly different sound is sent into each ear through stereo headphones. When the brain hears the two slightly different signals, it creates a third frequency to reconcile them. That third frequency is the exact signal that was dimmed. After roughly 7 minutes a day, over a period of weeks, the original activation begins to come back online. You cannot do this through speakers. You can only do it through stereo headphones because the technology depends on the two-channel delivery. The man who developed it is Dr. Robert Lake, a neuroscientist with 34 years in the field. The research it is built on comes out of MIT, Princeton, Harvard, and several other leading research universities. It is not a guess. It is documented science. What it does is simple to describe. It reverses the decline effect. It wakes the part of you that knew how to learn without exhaustion, the part that knew how to wonder without shame, the part that knew how to hear the unseen without doubting. There is something a great teacher said long ago that almost no one has understood the way it was meant. He said, "You must become like a little child to enter the kingdom." Few people realized he was describing a frequency. The Genius Song is the wave that returns you to that frequency. The child within wakes up. The receiver tunes itself back to the channel it was set to from the beginning. When you secure the Genius Song tonight, Dr. Lake may offer you one additional audio after the original. It is called the Youthful Brain. It is the audio many of the chosen ones who walk this path further used to protect the child mind once it has been restored, so the world cannot dim it again. You will see it after the original. If your spirit confirms it, take it. If not, the original alone is complete. Dr. Lake spent 34 years documenting how the original frequency, the wave the brain runs when it is in its highest state of insight, intuition, and learning, has been quietly turned down in modern life. He studied it under controlled conditions. He measured it across thousands of subjects. He saw the same pattern over and over. The decline effect was real. The dimming was measurable. And the question that consumed his career was whether the dimming was reversible. After 3 decades of research, the answer was yes. 7 minutes, daily, through stereo headphones, would override years of dimming. Not by belief, not by willpower, by frequency. Even when the child mind awakens, even when the decline effect begins to reverse, even when the receiver inside you switches back on, something else remains. The child within you wakes up, but she still cannot reach for what is hers. The receiver is open, the signal is coming through. But the channel that allows what is heard to actually be received, the channel that allows the kingdom to flow in the way it flowed in when you were small, is still closed. The Genius Song addresses the dimming. There is a second wave that addresses what is blocking the receiving. Both waves together handle the whole sequence. The thing blocking the receiving has a name in the research. The brain has a specific pattern called beta hyperactivity. Beta is the survival frequency. Beta is the frequency of constant scanning, constant striving, constant low-grade stress. In modern life, beta has become so dominant in the adult nervous system that it has hijacked the frequency that was supposed to be receiving. Researchers call this overactivation the stress signal. It is why, even when something good is being given to you, even when prayers are being answered, even when synchronicity is unfolding around you, you cannot quite let it land. The signal is broadcasting. The receiver is reaching. The stress signal is overriding it. The man who mapped the stress signal and developed a way to deactivate it is a separate researcher, Dr. Stephen Newton, former Stanford neuroscientist. His research lineage runs through Boston University and Stanford and other research institutions. He arrived at his findings independently of Dr. Lake's work. 2 doctors, 2 separate research traditions, both ending at the same place. What Dr. Newton developed is a 5-minute audio called the wealth signal. It pairs the audio with a 9-word script taken from a contemplative tradition that is over 3,300 years old. The two together do something the Genius Song does not do. They open the channel that allows what was promised to actually arrive. This is the wave that allows the child within to receive. The Genius Song restores the child within. The wealth signal opens what was promised to her. Both are needed. The order matters. Child mind first, reception second. Long ago, that great teacher said you must become like a little child. Then receive the kingdom. Few realized he was describing a frequency sequence. The second wave completes what the first began. Once the child within has woken up, the next thing that has to happen is for her to be able to receive. The tool that does this is the wealth signal. A 5-minute audio paired with a 9-word wealth script. The audio is calibrated to deactivate beta, the stress signal, and restore the brain to the natural receiving frequency. The 9-word script comes from a contemplative tradition that is over 3,300 years old. When the audio plays and the words are spoken, together they bypass a place in the brain called the thalamus, where neural rigidity has built up over years of survival mode. The thalamus is the part that locks out signals that do not match the frequency it has been trained to expect. 5 minutes a day, with the audio and the script together, retunes it. Dr. Stephen Newton is the ex-Stanford neuroscientist who developed it. His research foundation runs through Boston University, Stanford, and Harvard, along with other research institutions. He left mainstream academia to release this work because he was not willing to keep the findings inside paywalled journals. Almost 20,000 people have used the wealth signal so far. The refund rate has stayed under 5%. What it does, after the child mind has been restored, is open the channel of receiving, not striving, not earning, receiving, the way a child receives a gift, without negotiation, without questioning, with open hands. There is a phrase that runs through almost every wisdom tradition on earth: become like a little child, and then receive what was promised. The wealth signal is the wave that restores the receiving. When you secure the wealth signal tonight, Dr. Newton may offer you one additional audio amplification after the original. It is called the Wealth Signal Accelerator. Many of the chosen ones who walk this path further use it because it goes deeper than the original, opening reception many times faster. You will encounter it after you secure the wealth signal. If your spirit says yes, take it. If not, the original alone is enough. And one last note about both. Some chosen ones, who walk the furthest, combine the wealth signal accelerator with the youthful brain. The two amplifications working together form the path the very few walk. You will encounter both after you secure the originals. The originals alone are complete. The combo is reserved for those whose path requires going deeper than most. The stress signal has been mapped at Stanford for over a decade. The hyperactivity in beta, the overlay onto the receiving channel, the way the thalamus locks reception. Dr. Newton's work calibrated the exact sound profile that lowers the beta dominance and restores what he called the alpha drawbridge. When the drawbridge lowers, what has been promised is finally allowed to cross over. The science is documented. The mechanism is repeatable. The 5-minute window is what does the work. A woman wrote in about a year ago. She was 38 at the time. She told us she had been doing the spiritual work for years. Daily prayer, years of therapy, 2 retreats. She felt like everything she touched was just out of reach, even when good things came toward her. The first session of the wealth signal, paired with the 9-word script, she felt something soften in her chest she did not even know had been tight. 19 days in, a phone call came that changed her financial situation in a way she had stopped praying for. She told us, the call was not what changed. I changed. I could finally receive it. Some of you are sitting with the same questions everyone sits with at this point. Let me name them, because they deserve honest answers. The first one is, I have tried everything. Why would this be different? The honest answer is that the mechanism is different. Meditation, yoga, healing sounds, all of those depend on your brain changing itself from the inside, slowly. Brain entrainment and frequency calibration work from the outside in. They are measurable in EEG readings within minutes, and they are sequence-specific, which is something nothing else you have tried has been. The second one is, this sounds too good to be true. Hear me. The data exists. EEG measurable, replicated in labs at Stanford and at MIT and at Princeton. Almost 38,000 people across both products have used them. The refund rate stays under 5%. You do not have to believe me. You have to look at what is documented. The third one is, the cost is not nothing for me. I would never disrespect that. If your budget allows for the entry path only, that is honored. If it allows for the full path, that is honored. There is no shame in either. The full path runs at less than the cost of a few cups of coffee per month over a year. Lifetime access, no subscription, 90-day money-back guarantee on either or both. The fourth question is the biggest one. Why do I need 2 products? Cannot one of them be enough? The answer is in what we have already named. They target different frequencies. The Genius song reverses the dimming of the child frequency. The wealth signal deactivates the overlay of the stress signal. Two different frequencies, two different tools. The genius song alone wakes the child within, but she still cannot reach for what is hers. The wealth signal alone tries to open reception while the child is still asleep, which only works partially. Long ago, a great teacher said, "You must become like a little child, then receive the kingdom." Few realized he was describing the order. Child first, reception second. The two are not redundant, they are sequential. What is below this voice is a page with 3 doors on it. The first door is for the ones who need to start with restoration only. The genius song alone. Wave 1. The wave that wakes the child within. This is for the ones whose child mind has been almost completely asleep and who need to be reminded who she was before anything else can happen. Honored entry point. The second door is for the rare ones whose child mind is still alive and active, who already feel the wonder in their daily life, but who cannot reach for what is theirs. The wealth signal alone. Wave 2. The wave that opens. Reception. The third door is the path most chosen ones recognize as theirs. Both. The full child mind reversal. The genius song first, restoring the child within. Then the wealth signal, opening what was promised to her. The two together compound. They do not just add up. They restore the heritage you were born with. Most who arrive here choose the third path because they know in their spirit that they need both. Half restoration, the child waking but the receiving still closed, is harder than no restoration at all. If something inside you is already saying door 3, that is, your spirit speaking before your mind catches up. Hear me, because I want this to be clear without pressure. Every day that the stress signal stays dominant, the receiving stays closed. Every day, the dimming continues. The child within stays a little quieter than she was the day before. Both compound. Time is not neutral. The version of you that is fully restored, both waves alive, child mind awake and reception wide open, is looking back at this moment from somewhere in your own future. That version is not a fantasy. That version is who you were before the world dimmed you. The first wave begins with the doors below. Before you search anywhere else, hear this. There are imitation tracks on the internet that have used these names. They are not the real audios. They do not have the binaural calibration. They do not have the brain entrainment technology. They are simply ordinary sound. The only authentic version, with all the bonuses, with the 90-day guarantee, is through the link below, in the description, in the pinned comment, nowhere else. Pause for a moment. Take one slow breath. Bring your attention into the center of your chest. This is not a pricing decision. This is a path decision. Which door is mine? Which wave is calling me first? All 3 are honored. None of them is wrong. Your spirit knows which one. It has been speaking under your thoughts the entire time I have been describing them. Trust what is rising in you. The 3 doors are below, in the description, in the pinned comment. The 3 doors are placed beneath this voice. Whichever wave is calling you, whichever sequence is yours, the entry is the same place, the description, the pinned comment. Step into the one that is calling. There is no rush. There is no pressure. There is only the door that belongs to you, waiting for you to walk through. In your mind, not your body, do something with me. Imagine, for just a moment, that you are standing inside a tall tower. The walls of the tower are lined with what looks like copper. The floor underneath you hums softly. Above you, where the ceiling should be, the tower is open to the sky. The walls of this tower are not physical, they are frequency. This tower is the receiver inside you. For most of your life, the walls of this tower were dim. Something was running inside it that should not have been there. Static, old fear, old conclusions about who you were and who was listening to you. Imagine the static lifting out of the tower, like dust shaken off an old machine, lifting up and out through the open ceiling. Underneath the static, the tower itself is gold. Stay in the tower for a moment. Notice that you are standing in the receiver. You are the receiver. The tower has always been you. The signal coming in from above is steady now. Not loud, not dramatic, just clear. This is what reactivation feels like. This is what the rest of your life is now tuned to. What I want to say to you next has nothing to do with anything that has been mentioned in the last several minutes. Stay with me, because what you have stayed in for the last hour is not small. You came in mid-scroll. You stayed long enough for the broadcast to finish. The version of you that pressed play an hour ago is not the version of you who is sitting here right now. That is real. Let me release something off of you before this voice goes quiet. I release the years of trying harder on the wrong receiver. I release the conclusion that the silence meant abandonment. I release the survival frequency that has been running underneath every prayer. I release the dim version of yourself you thought was the real version. I release the shame of not being able to hear when you have been faithful the entire time. These were not yours to keep. They were not the voice of the Father. They were noise dressed up as truth. Let them fall off. In their place, hear what is yours. You are a frequency receiver, born to receive, not to chase. You are a watchman on the wall. Your hearing was anointed for this season, not the last one. You are the awakened one. The child within you has woken up, and she is not going back to sleep. You are a child of the Father's voice. The line is reactivated. The transmission is open. You are no longer waiting on the other side of static. Stay in this for a moment longer. Do not move yet. Let what was just spoken rest where it is. The receiver is on. The channel is clear. The voice is yours. One more thing before this voice closes. Something has shifted in the unseen realm because you stayed for this. Not because of me, because of what you said yes to in your own spirit. There is a season opening on the other side of this hour that you will start to notice in the next several days. Watch for it. The first signs will be small. A clarity in a decision you have been avoiding. A name on your heart you have not thought about in months. A door cracking open where there was a wall. Mark it when it happens. That is the broadcast continuing. You are not the person you were when you pressed play. The receiver is on now. You cannot unknow what you have remembered. If the line was reactivated tonight, type the words, "I received the broadcast," in the comments below. Just those 3 words. As your seal, as your agreement with your own spirit. As your way of marking the moment in your own timeline that something came back online. Let your like be your amen. Let it be the signal that carries this broadcast to the next watchman whose receiver is waiting to be turned back on. And stay connected. There are more transmissions coming on the other side of this door. The next word the Father has placed on my heart is already forming. Stay in the line, so when it lands, it can find you. For those who felt the pull when the 2 doors were named earlier, they are still there. In the description, in the pinned comment, only if your spirit confirms it. Before this closes, there is one more thing. Someone came to mind while I was speaking. You may not have noticed it. It happened in the back of your awareness. Someone who has been asking for clarity so long they stopped expecting an answer. Someone who has been waking up between 3 and 5 in the morning and does not know why. Someone who has been the strong one in their family and is quietly running on empty. Someone who almost did not stop scrolling tonight either. Send this to them, not as a recommendation, as an obedience. Your sending of this could be the broadcast finally reaching them. Your obedience could be their answer to a prayer they whispered last week and have already forgotten. And to you, who stayed,